Thanks, Anwar. So a little bit of logistics about being a part of a webinar. If you're new to the concept, we ask that you each as participants mute your phone, which gives us the best assurance for lack of background noise and or eliminating any feedback. We'll also mute you on our end. If people have questions or need clarification, there's a right-hand navigation to the GoToWebinar program where you can put in a question. You can post a question. So we do want the webinar to be interactive. We want people that have specific questions to be able to have those questions answered. So we'll do 2 different question and answer opportunities, one halfway through the presentation, and then again as we've wrapped up the content portion, there'll be a question and answer at the end. If you find that you still have unanswered questions, or we hope that this conversation sort of spurs some additional question or inquiry, you can reach out to the Agency of Agriculture. We can give our contact at the end and ask specific questions. So this webinar is being recorded, and you can direct other people from your staff or your school or other colleagues to find the recording on our website following this webinar. So I'm now going to turn it over to Ali Zaparo.
Thanks, Abby. I am Ali Zaparo. I work here at the Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets on the food systems section here on the Farm to School team. The main purpose of our webinar here, we intend to just clarify the agency's opportunities for planning, implementation, and universal meals granting process, and help schools and school districts get the most successful applications. In this grant webinar, we'll be covering basic background of our grant program and what all of the grant opportunities are. We'll be going through the application process and all of the requirements related to that. We'll go over what the grant timeline looks like, and then we will talk about the expectations we'll have from schools and TA providers, and then the commitments we'll make as an agency and our technical service providers. And then we'll talk a little bit about the partnership, the special partnership between our agency and Vermont Feed. We'll cover the technical assistance that goes with planning grants. We'll give some basic grant writing tips for all of our grant opportunities. We'll cover the Farm to School network. Of course, we'll tell you all about our Farm to School conference in November of 2016. And then we'll take some questions. And then we'll provide some resources that can help you with the application.
Hello, this is Jenny Hoarder. I'm a new member to the Farm to School team here at the Agency of Agriculture. So the Vermont Farm to School Grant Program provides Vermont schools with funds to integrate local foods into school cafeterias, classrooms, and communities. And our program is really enhanced by this special collaboration between our agency, the Agency of Education, Department of Health, and Vermont Feed, which is made up of Shelburne Farms and Oakville, Vermont. So the basic goals of our grant program are here. Our #1 goal is serving fresh and nutritious local food, educating students about where their food comes from and by whom, and promoting agricultural literacy. We'd like to help use Farm to School to help meet Vermont education standards. Also hoping to support sustainable farms by adding schools as a viable market outlet. We also hope that the program can help increase school meal participation through access to nutritious and delicious food, while also improving meal program viability and reducing plate waste. The overall goal of our grant program is to see the incorporation of Farm to School into the classroom, cafeteria, and community. Our Farm
farm-to-school grant programs are eligible to all Vermont schools. Schools with greater than 35% direct certification rates are eligible for the Universal Meal Funding program. Our program is designed such that one school would receive a planning and pilot grant, and over the course of developing that program, they would then apply for an implementation grant. And as far as the programs go, our planning grant program is a 12-month program. Schools can get up to $2,500 for action planning and to pilot some farm-to-school activities. And we do have required technical assistance that comes to schools at no charge. That is delivered by our technical assistance service providers. For our implementation grants, those are 18-month grants, schools can get up to $10,000 for farm-to-school activities that can include gardening, food procurement strategies, professional development, equipment purchases, etc. We really would like those schools to have received a planning grant in the past 2 years and to have attended the Farm-to-School Institute at Shelburne Farms in the past 3 years. And then we have our new Universal Meals Grant. Jenny, I'll let you take this one.
Sure. So grantees are eligible for up to $9,000 to help transition to a universal meals model. This grant, like the planning grant, has a required technical assistance component that we provide at no cost to the grantee, so it's in addition to the up to $9,000. And like Allie mentioned in the beginning, there is a special criteria to be eligible for this grant. You must have a direct certification rate of at least 35% and either already participate in the school lunch program and school breakfast program or make a strong commitment to participating in both should you receive the grant. So just to reiterate, not every school is eligible for the Universal Meals Grant. It's that direct certification rate that's really key. So now we'll dig in a little bit deeper into each of our grant opportunities. And we'll start with our planning and pilot grants. These grants are designed to develop a strong, committed farm-to-school team. This team can come from your existing wellness team, or it can be a new group of school community members. These grants help schools put systems into place to strengthen or create a supportive team, explore resources that are available, determine where a school is in its farm-to-school development, and develop an action plan for next steps. Farm-to-school activities can be piloted during your planning grant period, and these expenses can be included in your budget. For example, you can purchase local foods for taste tests or buy material to buy a snack cart. Technical assistance, again, as we mentioned, is provided to all farm-to-school planning grantees, coordinated by Vermont Feed and delivered by our statewide or regional farm-to-school grants, farm-to-school technical service provider organizations. And Ryan Mora from Shelburne Farms will discuss that technical assistance in greater detail later on in this presentation. And now moving on to our implementation grants. These grants are really focused on a few different components like local food procurement, classroom curricula development, and generally connecting with the ag community. Implementation grants are designed to complement schools that have already successfully completed a planning and pilot grant. These grants are intended to implement sustainable grant programs that will last long after the grant funds are gone. So, in other words, our goal is to work towards a place where farm-to-school is an expected part of the school culture. Activities that farm-to-school programs can take part in include, and this can be included in your budget or your application, so that is food service professional development, increased local food procurement, school gardening, taste tests in the cafeteria,
visiting a farmer who supplies local products to the school lunch program, classroom cooking activities, gleaning, and really much, much more. There's many other activities that can be associated with these grant projects, and we encourage you to be really creative. So for the budget development of your implementation grant, we do include some overall guidance. And this is not a requirement, but we've found over the years that this does help when you are putting your budget together. And we feel that spending on a farm-to-school coordinator's time should not exceed 25% of the overall budget that you submit in your application. And we, at the same token, recommend that no more than 25% of your budget be spent on building or expanding a school garden or purchasing a greenhouse. And just to expand a little bit on that point, we know that one of the most important parts of a school garden being successful is actually less in infrastructure and more about system development and resources which are available from trusted partners like the Vermont Community Garden Network. So we do encourage you to really look into VCGN's resources when you do think about how you'll incorporate a garden project into your grant application. For the kitchen equipment that you might include in your budget, in your application, we do recommend that it doesn't exceed 50% of the overall award. Again, you know, that really allows you to spend on other parts of a project, but does recognize the absolute importance of a school kitchen in a farm-to-school program. And finally, we do recommend that no more than 25% of the overall budget be spent on local foods. And the intention of this is that what we really do hope schools concentrate on is the overall exploration of systems on how to purchase more local food, rather than just spending on local food, as that tends not to lead to long-term sustainability in increasing local food purchases, which is a major goal of the grant program.
So this is Jenny again. As we've mentioned before, new this year we have a new component to our grant program, and that's that of the Universal Meals Grant. And these grants are designed to help schools leverage federal resources such as CEP or Provision 2 in order to offer all students breakfast and lunch at no charge. So the program provides schools with technical assistance to help them collect data to prepare to enroll in one of these two federal programs, CEP or Provision 2, and then also monetary resources to help pilot their new Universal Meals program. So these grants are intended to complement already existing farm-to-school programs and help make them more sustainable in the long run by increasing meal program participation. Like our other grant opportunities, this grant has a local food component, which the idea here is that increased meal program participation leads to greater revenue for a meal program, and then that increases their capacity to serve local fresh food. And it's important that schools demonstrate how they will do so in their application. For this grant, funds may be used as needed to support some of the following activities, and these are suggestions. You need not be limited to them. So grant funds can be used for the administration costs associated with implementing CEP or Provision 2. This could be in the form of compensation for additional staff time spent cleaning up direct certification lists, and applying to the programs. Funds may be used to provide staff with appropriate trainings and the associated costs, such as substitutes, travel fees, conference or training fees. You can make needed equipment purchases in order to make the Universal Meals program viable.
and you can use the funds to establish a reserve to offset any increased costs to the school meal program. And I just want to say here that so far, of all the schools that have implemented universal meals in Vermont, nobody has had to use their reserve fund because of increased costs to their program. So keep that in mind.
So for all of these grant opportunities that we just talked about, we do have some things that are not allowed to be included in the budget, so that we wanted to just outline those here, starting with our grant funds cannot be used to purchase non-local food. For obvious reasons, this program is to promote purchasing of Vermont products. We also don't allow any grant funding to go to school meal program services that are not accessible to students of all income levels. And we don't allow grant funding to be used for to pay for registration for Junior Iron Chef or other similar competitions. And finally, we don't allow our grant funding to pay for teacher salaries, although it can be used for subs. We don't allow the grant funding to be paid for to pay for teacher salaries.
So this is Abby Willard again. At this stage in the webinar, we wanted to encourage people that had any particular questions about the grant program, their eligibility, eligible expenses, to post them in the chat box. So over on the right-hand side of the GoToWebinar information bar is a chat box where any of the participants on the line can post a question that will then show up to the presenters, and we could do our best to answer. So we'll allow just a few minutes here for people to submit any questions. The next phase, as Ali mentioned, will be talking more about the granting process and application process. So we're not seeing any questions come on the line, which is fine. There'll be a second opportunity at the closure of the webinar for people to ask questions, as well as contact information to ask specific questions later on by email or phone. So we'll move on to the next portion of the webinar then.
So to access our Farm to School request for proposals, go to the Vermont Agency of Agriculture Food and Markets website and click on the Farm to School Grant Program, which is under the Grants tab in the upper right-hand side of the screen. From there, you would click on the Farm to School Grant Program link, and you'll find our web page. This is a little snapshot of what our web page looks like. And then as you scroll down, you'll find several different resources that can be helpful with your application, and which include a handy frequently asked questions list, a list of regional partners that can offer assistance to you, and examples of previously funded projects can be found on the web page. Both lists of schools that have been granted per year since the program began in 2007, and also a couple of interesting case studies that might help you frame what your application might look like. We really encourage you to use these resources as you work on your application, especially all of the organizations that are listed on the website and we encourage you to reach out to them for assistance as well. All of these resources are very useful.
So new this year, we've changed our application process. We've moved to an online application, and you can find this online application at agriculturegrants.vermont.gov. That link is in the Request for Proposals document. It's also on our grant program webpage. So we will no longer be accepting paper or emailed applications. They must be submitted through this new web grants program by noon on October 28th. We won't be accepting any paper applications, just to emphasize that. And we've included an appendix in our request for proposals that offers guidance in the online application process, so you can reference that as you get started. And please reach out to us if you have any questions about that process. That guidance document is also up on our grant program webpage. In doing your application, we recommend writing out your narrative responses in a word processing software and then uploading it to WebGrants. We find that it's much easier to type it out in something like Microsoft Word and then copy and paste it into the online system, just a piece of advice. And we'd like to note that each grant opportunity requires at least 3 letters of support. We require a letter from a school principal, food service director, and another farm-to-school stakeholder. And if a consortium or a district is applying, we require each of those letters from each school applying, as well as a letter from the superintendent. So to reiterate, a minimum of 3 letters if it's just one school applying, and then more if you're a group of schools applying. And those letters also need to be uploaded into the online system. So please don't send them to the agency or email them to us. Moving on.
So at this point, I just wanted to go over the application timelines. Our applications for all of these grant opportunities are due Friday, October 28th, 2016 by 12 p.m. noon. Applications will then be reviewed by a committee that includes representatives from all 3 Cs, our partner state agencies, and members of the Farm to School Network. Schools will then be notified in December of 2016 of their award, and schools will then receive funding in January of 2017. And then on February 8th, 2016, all grantees that are awarded grants will be required to attend the Farm to School Awareness Day at the Vermont State House, 2017. That obviously February 2016 has already occurred. So February 8th, 2017 is Farm to School Awareness Day. It's a day where we honor our past recipients of the grants and officially award our 2017 grantees. The grant award ceremony takes place at 4 p.m. in the State House cafeteria, and we will also have farm to school activities in the State House during the whole day. So we always encourage our grantees to come down early and visit the State House and have a lot of fun the whole day. The event in the evening includes remarks given by leadership from the Agency of Agriculture, Agency of Education, Department of Health, and other leaders, and is attended by many state legislators, farm school grantees, past and present, students, administrators, technical service providers, and it's really a great day. So if you are awarded a grant, your school is expected to attend to celebrate. So the grant timeline, again, the planning grants are 12 months. So these projects will take place from January 2017 through December 2017. For the implementation grants, January 2017 and June of 2018. And the Universal Meal Grants are 18-month grants as well, and those will take place between January 2017 and June of 2018. We strongly discourage extensions on planning grants because it puts schools in general out of sync for an implementation grant that we hope they would be applying for. If a school does need an extension on their implementation grant, this can be accommodated within reason. Our general goal is to see successful development of farm-to-school programming at your school, and we need to reiterate that if your school is applying, your school needs to really commit to the time frame that is outlined here when you are applying for the grant. So here's a little outline of what the expectations are from your school. Our payments operate on a reimbursement basis, with 40% of the grant actually paid up front right in the beginning. The next 40% is paid to your school after an interim report is submitted to our agency, and the final 20% of the grant is received by the school following a final report to our agency and also sharing documentation such as receipts and budget reports. Our interim reports for all three grants are due in June of 2017, and our planning final report is due in January of 2018, and our implementation and universal meals final reports are due in July of 2018. It's important to keep that reporting in mind and to make sure that your school is able to commit to this reporting. The report questions and expectations will be provided to grantees upon receipt of award so that you can better keep track of important data and information throughout the grant period. Schools will need to submit a certificate of insurance for $1 million and name the state of Vermont as an additional insured. So make sure your business office is aware of that even before you apply for the grant. Schools that have not received a grant from the state will also need to submit a W-9 form. It's really important that you make sure that you have a relationship with your business office, as they will be responsible for the grant agreement between your school and the state of Vermont. You also must make sure the roles and responsibilities associated with grant program implementation, invoice submissions, reporting, and overall accountability are very clear from the beginning, so that all reporting and invoicing occurs on time and in a thorough way. So make sure your business office, your administration, and all associated farm-to-school program participants are on the same page about the grant. So as we have mentioned, the Vermont Agency of Agriculture, Food and Markets, and Vermont Feed, which is a collaboration between Shelburne Farms and Nova Vermont, have had a long-lasting, unique public and nonprofit partnership to make our farm-to-school grant program successful and recognized nationwide for delivering high-impact programming. We use a legislative appropriation to provide grant funds to schools and school districts. And Vermont Feed uses years of nutrition and education experience to support development and implementation of farm-to-school grant programs. Vermont Feed has overseen and coordinated all of the technical assistance provided by regional organizations provided to planning grants over the past 2 years. So at this point, I will pass it over to Ryan Mora from Shelburne Farms to talk a little bit about the technical assistance that planning grantees can expect to receive achieve with their planning grant.
Thank you very much, Allie. All right, so for those who might not be familiar with Vermont Feed, as we kept on mentioning, it is a partnership project of NOFA Vermont and Shelburne Farms, where NOFA provides a lot of great technical assistance in terms of procurement and school meals and taste tests. And we at Shelburne Farms do a lot of work, particularly with the classroom component and doing curriculum development work and how that connects to what you might be doing in the cafeteria or school gardens. So we take this approach that is what's called the 3 C's approach, which makes sure that any farm to school program is really integrating classroom in terms of the standards-based learning that you're doing on food, farm, and nutrition, as well as with what's happening in the cafeteria as you are going about your farm to school program and bringing in more local foods or serving new foods to students that can be paired really well with some lessons in the classroom, some taste tests, and just general education about where our food comes from, because that will likely increase the participation in eating those foods in the cafeteria. And then the third component is the community. So making sure that the students are also going out and engaging in community-based learning with farms or with other organizations that are related to food, farming, and nutrition. So that is our model, and when we do coaching for schools, we make sure that any sort of action plan incorporates all of those 3 components, and then also a real plan for integration so that it doesn't all happen in silos. We can go on to the next slide now. So what this looks like from our end, Vermont Feed staff do not necessarily serve as coaches for all the schools. Just to make it clear, I have done that in the past through my role in Vermont Feed, but we partner with a number of our other farm to school organizations, some that you might know, Marble Valley Grows, Food Connects, Green Mountain Farm to School, etc. And we will try to pair you with somebody that will really meet what your school's needs are. So if you have a stronger need in the procurement area, although of course we're going to be having everybody working on all 3 C's, but we can match the right coach for you depending on where your area is of greatest need. And then of course just the geography will play into that. And what the technical assistance program looks like, which you get through the grant, there are some required things that it's really important for people to know that they'll be coming to, because this really does have to be a team effort. So Allie already mentioned the February 8th school teams attending the Farm to School Awareness Day at the State House. And then in February of 2017, there will also be an introductory webinar to what this farm to school planning looks like and team building using the action planning template that we've developed through Vermont Feed and other partnerships. And then one of the first major things that will come into play is in March, where we'll have an in-person full-day action planning workshop. And we don't have the location or exact date set for this just yet, but that's where you need to have at least 3 members of your team attend that. And of course, we would encourage as many people as possible coming to that, because that's where you'll really set the goals for your farm to school program. And then we've also found that specifically it's been really helpful for teachers who are involved in your farm to school program to have a specific curriculum integration workshop for them. And that will also be a 1-day location, a 1-day seminar that will happen somewhere in location TBD and will be facilitated by us at Vermont Feed. And I know from my own experience in the classroom that it was really necessary to have those kind of specific targeted days for that. And so any teachers who are involved in your committee will be required to come to that one as well. And then ongoing through all of this, you will have access to that coach that's assigned to your school for about 15 hours. Well, not about 15 hours, exactly 15 hours, that you can figure out what is best to use his or her time. It can be coming on site to your farm to school meetings. It could just be having phone call correspondence or just some other targeted planning around your goals, and as well as just how do you actually move forward with this action planning template that you've filled out. And again, that will be provided by somebody who's a good regional partner that is a good match for your school and their needs. All right, I think we've got one more slide that we can advance. So this again is just for the planning grantees, and what you can see on this slide is all the various areas in which we can help. We are trying to first help you actually figure out what your plan is from farm to school. That's the action planning piece, where we want to make sure that we can get you all to kind of have a cohesive, integrative vision that will be sustaining. The planning grant money is, as Ali mentioned, used to really make a good plan that can sustain itself after the funds are done. So it's not necessarily having to jump right into planning all these different events that might happen during the year or launching a new curriculum or something like that. But it's about getting all the pieces in place and making the right plans to guide you through that process. So that's what the kind of help you can receive from your coach. And then once the action plan is in set, then it's about connecting you to the resources to realize that plan. Finding those people that you might need to connect with in the community, or finding some good resources with curriculum or with procurement and whatnot. And again, it can happen in person, it can happen over the phone, but you've got that person for 15 hours of consulting. And I think that's all I've got. Do we have one more?
This is me. So like our planning grants, our universal meals grants also have a required technical assistance component that we provide to our grantees. Well, actually that our partners that are experts in universal meals will provide to grantees. And this technical assistance will provide customized trainings for the leadership teams at each grantee school to ensure that everybody on that leadership team is up to speed on all the relevant topics. And then in addition, it will include individualized technical assistance to each grantee. And that technical assistance will vary by school depending on the need of each school and where each school is at. But some of the things that it would include are determining direct certification percentages that are accurate in order to apply for CEP or Provision 2 by April 1st, 2017. The TA could help a school transition to a universal meals model, increase local food procurement in their cafeteria, help market their school meal program and universal meals to diverse stakeholders in the school community in order to build support, develop a plan to expand student participation in school meals and utilize the appropriate child nutrition programs in order to ensure that the school meal program is sustainable in the long run. And then to create an action plan, identifying support and resources that may be needed to make that plan successful. So these are all areas in which our experienced technical assistance service provider will help schools with, depending on their needs.
So at this point, we're going to get into some grant writing tips. We've gone through the good majority of our presentation, and these are just some tips that we've found over time are useful for applicants to keep in mind as they're writing their grants. In general, try to be honest, measurable, passionate, and quantitative. So know that you're working on something that is really exciting, but also that we are looking for some quantitative evidence to measure the impact of your program. The grant program is actually a really great opportunity to establish a local food tracking system. So if you don't have one, this is a great way to figure out a way to track it. That is one of the metrics we do track right from the application process. So we do recommend that your schools consider ways to measure that so we can track progress over time. Make sure you have your farm to school team review your application before you are submitting. We find that having an extra set of eyes is always really important. Keep your timeline and deliverables reasonable. It's easy to get overly excited about some projects, but be realistic about resources and the available resources within the timeline you're thinking about. Always check for spelling mistakes, mostly to help our reviewers in ease of reading. When you're addressing program sustainability, the planning grants should identify obstacles for engaging partners and ensure alignment with wellness initiatives. So make sure that when you are writing your grant, you're able to explain the ways that you can engage in with many different partners, and that you are using your wellness policies to align with your farm-to-school goals. You can see a recently updated Vermont School Wellness Policy Guideline online, which was developed by the Agency of Agriculture, Agency of Education, and the Department of Health. And you can use these guidelines to learn how to use farm-to-school to implement your school wellness policy. Farm-to-school is a great tool to implement your school wellness policy, so we really do encourage you to make that connection. For implementation grants, describe how you will permanently increase capacity for serving local food and integrating farm-to-school into everyday activities. We want the implementation grant applications to demonstrate a strong commitment to the 3 C's, classroom, cafeteria, and community, and farm-to-school, and have a plan for sustaining an embedded program in the long term so that farm-to-school is an expected part of your school's culture. Make sure that you can demonstrate that if 1 or 2 people on your farm-to-school team leave, there is adequate support to keep the program and project on track. We need to know that there is a plan in place to deal with school overturn. And we've learned over the years that this kind of overturn can be detrimental to a project, but with proper planning in place, that can be avoided. And for universal meal applications specifically, make sure you're able to demonstrate how you will incorporate more local food into your school meal program and the connection between universal meals and farm-to-school. So, the farm-to-school network is an incredible resource. The network consists of many service providers, state agencies, and other nonprofit partners. Many of you heard about this webinar through the Farm-to-School listserv, and if you haven't signed up for it yet, please do. This is a little screenshot of the Farm-to-School network webpage, and on the top right-hand corner, you will see that there's a tab for joining the listserv. So if you're not signed up for that listserv, again, please do. There's an incredible amount of information that comes through there that's very relevant to your work. And don't forget to come to the Vermont Farm-to-School Conference, November 2nd and 3rd of 2016. That's just a couple weeks away. We'll have workshops on local procurement, farm-to-school in curriculum, school gardening, using farm-to-school for alternative education, on-farm education, local food marketing in the cafeteria. And the conference is geared towards really everybody, from teachers to child nutrition professionals, school board members, administrators, legislators, farm-to-school coordinators, school nurses, farmers, parents, or anyone who wants to learn more about farm-to-school. We have an incredible lineup of speakers, including Betty Wiggins, who's the food service director for Detroit Public Schools, who was first inspired by farm-to-school by visiting Vermont in 2012, and she'll talk about her experience in Detroit and will inspire us all in turn. And the USDA Farm-to-School Director, Deborah Kane, who before becoming USDA Farm-to-School Director did incredible work in Portland, Oregon. So she'll be talking about her career and co-work with USDA Farm to School. And of course, we'll have leadership from the Agency of Agriculture, Agency of Education, and the Department of Health, and possibly a very special guest who was integral in bringing Farm to School to USDA through Congress. But that's a surprise guest, so you'll find out when you're at the conference. And of course, we'll have lots of incredible food. Almost every single bit of it will be local, and we'll have an incredible lineup of workshops. So we really, really hope to see you there. At this point, we'll open up the presentation for questions. I know I see that we've got a few already. I'm going to have Jenny and Abby lead the question and answer session. And of course, if you don't get a chance to ask a question because you're watching this on a recording, our contact information is on the screen right now. So take it away, Jenny and Abby.
All right, our first question is about direct certification, and I'm actually going to have Noor Horton from Hunger Free address this one because she is absolutely the expert here. Noor, take it away.
Okay, what is the question?
The question is, can you please explain direct certification?
Ah, great, yes. Okay, so I think that probably anyone who works with schools is familiar with the idea of measuring the percentage of low-income students in the school using our free and reduced price school meal program applications each year. So students who are directly certified for school meals are a subset of the total group of students at your school who are eligible for free or reduced price school meals. They're students who live in a household that's using another federal program so that they've already been determined to be income eligible for free school meals. And so the children in those households, the students at your schools who come from those households, are what we call directly certified for school meals. Their families don't have to fill out an application, and they automatically get free school meals. And I'll tell you the categories of students we're talking about. So these are students who live in households that receive 3 Squares Vermont, which is Vermont's SNAP or food stamp program. They receive Reach Up. They are a foster child that's been placed by the state, so they're an official foster child. They've been designated to be homeless by a school official or your homeless liaison in your district or supervisory union. They participate in a Head Start preschool program that is connected to your school, or they're a child who is part of a migrant family. So those categories of students are the group of students that are directly certified for school meals. And you find out about foster kids, 3 Squares Vermont household kids, and Reach Up household kids, and migrant household kids from a list that's generated originally in the Department for Children and Families. Every month, that list is sent to the Agency of Education's IT department. They split the list up into the different supervisory unions and districts, and they send those lists out to the designated recipients of those lists in your SUs or districts. The homeless kids and your Head Start kids, those are that information you have to go get from your homeless liaison, and from your Head Start pre-K program, who those kids are in your district every month. The problem is that the direct certification list that is generated by the Department for Children and Families is inaccurate and tends to undercount the number of kids who really should be on that list, and that's because of the old IT system that we have in the Agency of Human Services. So there are steps you can take at the school level to correct your direct certification list and find the kids who should be on it, who maybe got left off. And that can help boost your direct certification percentage and strengthen your ability to provide universal meals. And Hunger Free Vermont has developed a step-by-step instruction guide for how to correct that direct certification information, and that's something that we can provide to you. If you contact one of the folks you see on your screen, contact Allie or Jenny at the Agency of Agriculture. They can connect you with me, and I can get that for you.
Thanks, Honor. The next question is from an early child care provider asking for an explanation of the two acronyms SBP and NSLP. So I know that was in your talking point. Do you want to address that question?
Yes, those were on the slide of the eligibility requirements for universal meals. And SBP stands for School Breakfast Program, and NSLP stands for National School Lunch Program. Those are the two federal meal programs that we require schools to either already participate in or commit to participating in order to qualify for the Universal Meals Grant.
So there's two questions pertaining to the relationship of a school to receiving a planning grant and then being eligible for an implementation grant. So the first question is, if a school is receiving a planning grant this year, can they apply next October for an implementation grant? And I think our response would be yes, as long as enough progress has been made in the planning grant process to have an action plan, have pulled together your farm to school team, and have a sense of what your implementation priorities would be for your school or your district. And so that process is similar to the question that's asked, is it mandatory that schools applying for an implementation grant have received a planning grant or gone to the Shelburne Farms Institute in the past 2 years? So mandatory is language that I guess we probably wouldn't want to exclude a school from participating and applying for an implementation grant, but the purpose behind that requirement is for an implementation grant, an implementation school to be successful, we know that they need to have gone through a planning process of some kind, whether that's by receiving a planning grant through the Farm to School Grant Program, by participating in the Farm to School Institute, or they could engage in their own planning process to ensure that there's a committed farm to school team at their school. There's the action plan, as I mentioned, and some clear steps for achieving that culture change and incorporation of those 3 C's into a school community. So if there was a school that felt that they had an adequate plan for their farm to school program and wanted to have a direct conversation with our team here at the agency, we'd be happy to entertain that conversation. But in most cases, we're really looking for a school to sort of go through the planning process in some fashion. So the next question is around the November Farm to School Conference, trying to get a sense for audience. Is it intended for both teachers and students? And I'll let Allie, as the expert and project manager for this statewide Farm to School Conference, answer that question.
That's a great question. And yes, it is intended for both teachers and students. It's a little bit, I would say, more out of those 2 audiences geared towards teachers. There's a significant curriculum workshop on how to incorporate farm to school into the curriculum, and several other workshops that deal with that as well. However, for the older student that's really engaged in organizing around farm to school in their community, I would say there's a great opportunity at the conference. So again, I think that the opportunity at the conference is really more for a mature or a teacher, but we certainly would love to see engaged students that would like to learn about how to incorporate farm to school more
producers selling to schools. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's sort of just a general question around how does local product make it into Vermont schools, which probably has a tangential relationship to the Farm to School grant program and the grants received by schools. And each school, I think, could attest to the process of local procurement in their school system being a bit of a unique process, generally a relationship with the food service director, oftentimes having a relationship with a distributor that may be currently serving that school to get their product into the school meal program. But certainly the Farm to School program mantra, at least in Vermont, is all about relationships and connections and ensuring that there's a line of communication between the agricultural community and the school system, primarily through the cafeteria and the food service program, and we're talking about local procurement. So encouraging producers to have a one-on-one relationship with the school in their community or that they're interested in serving. And so there was just a question of who was responding to that question. So my name is Abby Willard, and I'm the Food System Section Chief here at the Agency of Agriculture. So not seeing additional questions being posted, but as you can see on the slide, contact information to reach Brian, Allie, and Jenny, encouraging people to reach out to any of them with questions about the technical assistance, primarily focusing on Ryan or Allie or Jenny around the grant program. Encourage all interested schools to go to the Agency of Agriculture's web page at agriculture.vermont.gov. And thank you all for being passionate about Farm to School, interested in a creation or expansion of a Farm to School grant or program at your school, and interested in applying for possible grant funding to help that process get initiated in your community. So I know that our team is looking forward to reviewing applications from across the state and look forward to having any follow-up questions and conversations with people that are looking to apply.
And we will see you at the Vermont Farm to School Conference, November 2nd and 3rd at Lake Maury. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Lenore and Ryan, for being on the call and for all interested schools.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you for having us. Looking forward to hearing from folks.
Great. Bye, everybody.